Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Opening the door of the mall, Maria took a deep breath and squeezed her eyes shut against the bright sun. Wow, it seems like summer just arrived today, and it's already so hot outside. How beautiful is that? It's breathtaking. The bushes that grew along the road are still cut. The ground is covered with new greenery. Maria grinned. She hadn't noticed how summer had come. She hadn't had time for it. She rarely went outside, only in case of urgent need when she ran out of food. Like today, for example. Well, that's it, thought the young woman. It's time to hurry to the bus. So much time Wendy had lost, and so has been alone for quite some time already. The handles of huge bags laden with groceries whipped out into the palms of her hands. But Maria tried to ignore it, remembering along the way if she'd forgotten anything. Come on. She stopped like a stump in the middle of the sidewalk. Diapers for the elderly. What's up with that? I thought she remembered them all the way to the mall. It slipped my mind. Come back. She looked at the bags, exhausted. I don't want to lug them around. It will take so long to turn in the luggage room, and there's a line at the cash register. Suddenly, Maria saw the right bus approaching the stop. No, I'm not going back. Yes, besides, it's bad luck. And she accelerated her step when the woman began to climb the steps of the bus. Someone literally snatched the bag from her hands. She shuddered and raised her head and saw a smiling man of pleasant appearance. Girl, let me help you, he offered. It's hard. I can see. Maria smiled modestly and, thanking the sympathetic stranger, handed him the bags. She went up to the bus and stood by the window. He put the bags next to her. The girl mentally chuckled, she must have you in my 40s with a tail. Nice. The man looked at Maria appraisingly. If you look at her from the outside, then quite possible to take for a girl. She was small and fragile with a mop of red hair, carelessly gathered in a bundle on the back of her head. But his face gave it away, age, tired bruises under his eyes. I guess life must be hard. Maria didn't notice she was being stared at. Her mind was on something else, so she decided to call her husband. Andrew, I'm sorry. I don't have time, I guess. But I just don't know what to do. I bought everything. On the bus ride back, I remembered I forgot to buy diapers for your mom. And there's only 2 or 3 left at home. Why don't you stop by the store after work and pick some up? Yeah, Andrew, I know you reminded me. And I know about the lists. I forgot to write them down. Yeah, sure, Andrew. What do you got? I mean, I agree, I'm absent-minded. But I thought I'd remember everything. Well, I did. Next time, I'll make sure I do what you say, so you can stop by and buy it. No, Maria was silent again, listening more attentively to her interlocutor, and then quietly answered, well, I will try to call Lisa now. She ended the call and immediately dialed her daughter. Lisa answered in a whisper because the lecture was in full swing. The girl was in her final year of college. Yes, Mom, she hissed irritably. What did you forget to buy? Yeah, sure, I'll come by. Right after class. Don't worry, I'll never forget everything yet. Having switched off the phone and pressed it to her chest, Maria sighed with relief. But then she realized she was approaching her stop. It was not enough to pass by, and then with bags to drag back. In her haste to grab the bags, she saw a bottle of milk fall out of the bag. But then the man who helped her pick up the bags again did not hesitate and came to her aid for the second time. Once again, she gave him a grateful smile. Maria jumped out of the bus and waved her hand in gratitude in the direction of departing his transport. She walked briskly in the direction of home. Maria lived in a huge 2-story house, which father-in-law built independently with his own hands. True, this construction work severely undermined his health, and 9 years ago the man died. And after a while, my mother-in-law got sick too. That's something no one expected. Wendy had been an active, energetic woman all her life. She exercised in the mornings, ate a healthy diet, and led an active lifestyle. From the outside, it looked like she was in perfect health, but she wasn't. Stopping at the front door, Maria took a deep breath. She really wanted to believe that nothing terrible had happened in her absence. However, upon opening the door at the smell, The woman realized that her hopes were not destined to come true. The pungent smell of human feces hit her nose. "Oh no," mentally forced Maria. But why does Wendy keep pulling out her diaper? When would it all end? But it actually turned out to be much worse. The elderly woman not only removed the diapers, she washed all the walls of the kitchen and living room with the contents. She herself wandered around the kitchen. "Mommy, how many times can you do this?" Maria scolded her, putting the bags on the table. "I asked you to lie still until I get back. I'm not going to tie you up. Who are you?" Her mother-in-law stared at her with an angry look on her face. "You're following me. Are you trying to kill me?" She immediately jumped to the cutlery drawer and opened it, frantically fumbling with her hand, not taking her eyes off the sign. Of course, she was looking for a knife, but Maria thoughtfully hid them long ago, pulling out the first thing that came to hand. And that was a fork. The sick woman headed in Maria's direction. "Get out," she whispered, "or you'll be sorry." "I guess I'll have to get another injection," Maria thought. Aggression again. For about 40 minutes, the young woman put the elderly woman's vigilance to sleep by all means. In the end, she managed to come to such a distance, which allowed her to give an injection, after which the mother-in-law calmed down and allowed her daughter-in-law to take herself to the shower and wash. There was a pungent odor in the house. There was nothing to breathe, and Maria wanted to wash everything as soon as possible and open all the windows and doors. But her mother-in-law had worked up an appetite, and she could not leave the sick woman hungry. As the meal was coming to an end, Lissa returned from studying with 2 huge packs of diapers in her hands. "What smells so bad?" "It's Grandma's weirdness again." "Yes, sad," Maria sighed. "He made a mess while I was at the store." "Don't worry," smiled the girl. "Now everything, according to me, we'll check." "You're tired, probably already. I'm resting. I'll clean everything myself." "Don't worry about me, nothing, I'm not tired." "Yes, with such an aroma as such an appetite is gone," laughed the daughter. "I'll just get my gloves. By the way, how are you feeling?" She looked at her mother carefully. "Yes, I'm fine." She did not want to alarm her daughter and decided to keep silent about the fact that she had already taken 2 tablets of painkillers just for today. And she felt she was about to go for a third, having cleaned and opened everything. Everything that was possible. No matter how hard the women tried, they couldn't completely get rid of the bad odor in the house by the time the head of the household arrived. Andrew turned up his nose and barely stepped over the threshold. "You, what stinks?" He grimaced, demonstratively clamping his nose with his fingers. "Maria, but you're home all the time. Is it so hard to keep an eye on Mom? I'm already tired like a dog after work, and I have to put up with all this. I thought I'd come home, relax, have dinner. But here I am in the bathtub, like in a street toilet. What am I going to do?" Maria shrugged. "I told you this morning that the fridge is empty. I need something to cook with. You're always at work on weekends too. What should I do? Where am I supposed to take Wendy? Should I take it with me?" And then we cleaned it all up. The smell will be gone soon. Andrew thought about it. There was nothing to complain about. But after her words, it became unpleasant. "You know what, Maria, I cannot be in a cafe in such conditions." Maria put her mother-in-law to bed and took a shower and went to the bedroom. But sleep did not come to her. "I had another headache." The painkillers worked for a very short period of time. So she studied all night, and in the morning she realized that today would not be easy either. From the morning, there was the clinking, clattering of dishes in the kitchen. Having got used to her sick mother-in-law, Maria got up, threw on a robe, and, entering the kitchen, saw how she with some sinister smile was beating plates, throwing them on the floor. "Thank God Andrew and Lisa are gone," Maria thought to herself. Andrew was always unhappy, which he didn't have time to keep an eye on her mother-in-law. He repeatedly made her understand that a sick woman can be identified as a specialized institution, and then everyone will immediately become easier to live. But Maria and her husband strongly disagreed. "Andrew, how can you say that? It's your mom, and she's not alone. She has us? No, I'm not turning her in." "Yeah, but you can't handle her either." "I didn't agree with my wife's arguments." "Man, you even had to quit your job for her." "Well, first of all, not quit, but telecommute. That's not the same thing." especially since I haven't lost any money and I'm doing just fine. Not to forget, we all live in Wendy's house. She is a very nice and helpful person, and she's helped us so much. I see you've forgotten everything. Yes, I remember mumbling everything. The spouse is just tired of living like this. It's becoming unbearable. She doesn't recognize us. And there's a nursing staff there. She'd be getting expert care. No, Andrew, the matter is closed. I won't let you get rid of your own mother like that. And she turned away, signaling that the conversation was over. Andrew then waved his hand, but still in the most difficult moments for Maria reminded about his idea. But his wife stubbornly stood her ground. Maria took a deep breath and, writhing with a wild headache, which was aggravated by the rattle of breaking dishes, went to her mother-in-law. After calming the woman down, she started cleaning. Then Maria remembered that today was the last day to turn in the report, and it was only half done. Her head snapped to pieces. Maria had long ago switched to the strongest painkillers she could get at the pharmacy without a prescription. But even they gave relief, unfortunately, not for long. And recently, the headache was joined by nausea and tinnitus. And sometimes Maria had vision in her eyes. The woman kept silent about these symptoms because she knew that her relatives would be alarmed. Especially her daughter would insist on an examination. And one on whom she would leave poor Wendy. Especially Andrew had already offered to take her to a treatment facility. He certainly won't be with her. After 2 hours, the mother-in-law had completely calmed down and went to her room to watch TV. There was a long-awaited silence in the house, and Maria, taking advantage of the situation, went to finish the accounting report. But as soon as she sat down at her desk, there was a quiet knock on the door, and her mother-in-law entered the room as quietly as a mouse. Maria stared at her in surprise. "Maria, I would like to talk to you." "Mom, we can't postpone the conversation. I have a report to finish urgently. But given my condition later, it might not work out." With a slight smile, Wendy replied, "Let's do it now while I'm still thinking." Maria looked at the older woman carefully and, smiling, closed the notebook, showing that they were ready to listen to her. Sometimes Wendy had moments of enlightenment, and today was one of them. Her speech was clear and her gaze meaningful. Her mother-in-law, seeing that Maria was willing to listen to her, immediately grabbed a chair and placed it in front of her, sat down and lowered her eyes, as if she didn't know where to begin. "Maria, I wanted to tell you that I bequeathed our house to Lisa. For God's sake, don't take offense at me for that. I'm not stupid. I understand exactly what's happening to me. I know what dementia is and where it's all going to end up. That's why, when the first symptoms started to appear, I immediately went to a notary and made a will. But don't think, I was still completely sane at the time, so everything was done according to the law. I don't see why I should resent you." Smiling slightly, Maria replied, "It's your right. Only you decide how to dispose of your own property. Besides, Lisa is my daughter. But what I really wonder is why her, why not Andrew? He's your son. You know, Maria, I love you and my granddaughter very much. I love my son too, of course, but he's a very peculiar person. Do you think I don't hear your conversations or don't understand them? I understand everything, and I know that if it were not for you, he would have put me in some almshouse long ago and lived carefree. When I died, in the absence of a will, he would have inherited this house. But I don't know how your life will turn out. So I'm sure you won't be out on the street if anything happens. Lisa's a very sweet girl, kind, helpful, just like you. Anyway, I won't bother you anymore. That's basically all I wanted to tell you, and I'm glad you don't mind. There's a copy of the will in my dresser drawer. That's it. Get to work." And the mother-in-law, returning the chair to its place, quietly went out, leaving Maria in thought. She didn't even know what to say. And to be honest, Maria had never thought about what would happen when Wendy was gone. And it would have been natural for Andrew to inherit the house. But look how she's turned it around. Well, if that's what the missus decides, then so be it. Though it's strange when a mother doesn't trust her own son. Of course, there's no such thing as a perfect person. We all have flaws, and Andrew is no exception. Maria decided to go back to work and opened her laptop. But suddenly, the tinnitus increased sharply and became intolerable. She sharply clamped her ears with her palms, and immediately her eyes began to double and the picture became blurred. Lisa came home and involuntarily listened. Silence. This was very rare. Super. The girl was happy. Now I'll rest in peace. I will start to prepare for the exams. Lisa went to her room, took a shower, and going out into the living room, looked around. Suspiciously quiet Mom, who always hurries to meet and feed her girl, was nowhere to be found. Maybe she had gone somewhere else? But where? Lately, she'd hardly left the house at all. Lisa looked into her grandmother's room. She was dozing in a chair with the TV on. Mom wasn't there either. The girl got worried. She opened the door to the room where Mom usually worked and froze in place. The frost ran down her skin from what she saw. The woman was lying on the floor next to a fallen chair. There were also papers scattered all over the floor. Mom must have tried to grab onto something when she fell. Ended up dumping everything on the floor. Lisa jumped up to her mother and started slapping her cheeks, trying to bring her to her senses. But it was all in vain. The mother was breathing, but did not regain consciousness. Only the ambulance doctors, whom Lisa immediately called, were able to help. When Maria regained consciousness and opened her eyes, she groaned and grabbed her head with both hands. Her head hurts, the doctor clarified. Mommy always has a headache, and a very bad one. Lisa quickly answered for Mom. I see. What did the examination show? What did the doctors diagnose you with? I have not examined. Barely audible, answered Maria herself. Do I have time for that? No, I have a sick mother-in-law. She has dementia. Yeah, I understand. There are always things more important than your own health, nodded the doctor. How long have you had it? I mean the headaches. Until about 3 years ago, Maria shrugged. At first it was tolerable and pills helped, but now it's unbearable. Yes, and now I have tinnitus in my ears, and the picture in my eyes is double, and everything is blurred, and the occasional bout of nausea. Mom, why didn't you say anything to me? Lisa exclaimed, dumbfounded by her mother's words. She probably didn't want to bother you, the doctor suggested. I'm right. He turned to Maria. She nodded affirmatively, and immediately grabbed her head again. What a familiar story? Quickly pack and go to the hospital in your condition. You just vital examination and hospitalization. Andrew had been nervous since morning. He was already late for work, and his mother was insane again. He doesn't recognize the aggressive one. I don't want him to get into trouble. There was no way he could leave her alone. The daughter went to take a shower and disappeared too. He knocked on the bathroom door. Lisa, are you coming soon? Yes, all answered the girl, opened the door. How impatient is everyone. She walked past her father, but he grabbed Lisa's arm. Wait, he said. I have a favor to ask of you. Could you stay home tonight? There's no one to look after Grandma, and I'm late for work. No, I have an exam today, and I can't miss it. But you could just take the day off. I think it's time you started watching your mom. She released her hand and quickly went to her room to change. Andrew absent-mindedly looked after his daughter in the sense of time off. What if his mother messed up or stained something again? Who would clean it up? Him? The man was not ready for such a turn of events. Lisa quickly ran out of the house, not paying attention to your father. She didn't care about him at all. She wasn't even ready for the exam, because all her thoughts were with her mom, who was taken away by ambulance yesterday. Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. She barely remembered how bad her mom looked. She hadn't noticed it before, but yesterday she looked at her differently. Skinny, pale, dark circles under her eyes. After passing the exam, the girl jumped out of the institute and rushed to the hospital. The cab came quickly, and thank God there were no traffic jams. At the hospital, they allowed her to go up to the ward because Maria was not allowed to get up. When Lisa entered the room, she could barely keep from giving in to her emotions and bursting into tears at what she saw. Her mother was lying on the bed up to her chin. The sheet was pulled up, and the color of her face was spitting with the color of the sheet. Such a sickly Lisa had never seen Mama so sickly. How had all this not been noticed before? And after all, Mom had time to manage everything and to run the household and work, and to look after her sick grandmother. "Hi, Mom," Lisa quietly said to her mother on the cheek. She smiled weakly in response. "What the doctors say MRI did." Maria, instead of answering, turned away and paced with her nose. "Mom, are you crying?" Did everything so badly alarm the daughter? "I don't know. I hope not. They found a tumor in her head. They said we'll treat it." "Mom, I think there's something you're not telling me." "What kind of tumor? How are they going to treat it?" "Yeah, I don't know. It's hard," Maria sighed. "They say that we need to make an additional examination and take a lot of tests. But don't worry, I'll manage. You better tell me, how is Grandma? Who's she with now?" "But when I went to the institute, my father stayed with her. He wanted to leave me, but I told him to take the day off and take care of his mom." "Oh, I hope he doesn't figure it out." "He's leaving her alone," Maria sighed. "I can't imagine how you'll be in the hospital now. I'll be here for a long time. They won't let me out of here anytime soon." "Yes, we'll manage. Mom, we're not small. You just get better. We need your health." They talked for a long time on distracted topics. But listening to her mother's detached voice, Lisa became more and more worried. She finally got the impression that her mother was keeping silent about something, and the girl decided to find out everything on her own. She went out of the room and looked for the attending doctor. He turned out to be a smiling man of about 45 years old. However, when he found out whose daughter was standing in front of him, the smile instantly slipped off his face. "So you're Maria's daughter. Unfortunately, I can't give you any news. We found a tumor in your mother's head. I can't say for sure until we run a series of tests and further investigations. But judging by the enlarged nodes, the tumor is malignant. And on top of that, it's not surgery. It's too late. You see, time is a precious resource, and it's wasted. Why didn't your mom come to us sooner? She's been suffering from headaches and sitting at home for 3 years. If she'd come in right away, we would have cut it out. And now?" He spread his hands helplessly, looking at the bewildered girl in front of him. "If it is confirmed that the tumor is malignant, your mother will be transferred to the oncology department, and she will be given chemotherapy." Lisa lowered her head and stared at the floor. She was in such shock that she didn't even know what else to ask the doctor. "It's chemotherapy. It'll help. Mom's gonna be fine. I'm not gonna get your hopes up. With a diagnosis like this, in my experience over the years, there's no hope of recovery. All we can do is keep her alive. But how long it will last, no one knows." From resident Lisa came out lost in tears, covering her eyes so much that she couldn't see the road. Everything floated away. She at first wanted to go back to her mother's room, but then she realized that now she would definitely not be able to hold back her emotions and would start sobbing right there. She was already on the verge of hysteria. And the girl turned 180 degrees and quickly left the ward. At home, her angry father was waiting for her. "Lisa, thank God you showed up. Where have you been for so long? Grandma made a mess of things. I can't clean it up by myself. I need your help. Where have you been all this time? Why didn't you watch her? You snapped at your crying daughter? Did you leave her alone?" "Well, of course, I cannot sit with her all day as tied." And then the man took a closer look at his daughter and asked, "Lisa, have you been crying? What happened?" "I failed my exam." "And I see you're not interested in your mother's condition at all." The girl smirked. "Isn't that what you should have asked in the first place?" "Well, I'll tell you anyway. The doctor said that she has a tumor in her head, apparently malignant and not opera. There's no time, but we're going to fight for Mommy-Daddy, aren't we?" The daughter looked at her father with eyes red with tears. Her voice trembled. "We will save our mom. Tell me, since we will save her," men's eyes blinked, "if the doctors won't undertake to operate on her. But there are other clinics. We can take her abroad. Maybe the doctors there will do it. She's not the first one with such a diagnosis. There's a lot of TV shows. Our doctors refuse, but foreign doctors do everything." Andrew lowered his head and kept silent. He didn't know what to say to his daughter. "Dad, why are you standing there? Go to your mom. I wonder why you didn't do it this morning instead of me. She's waiting for you, and you need to be there for her. I'll clean up the place myself. Yes, yes, of course. The man rushed towards the bedroom to change. But then he stood back and looked at his daughter confused. What am I going to tell her, Lisa? She knows about her diagnosis, what to talk about, how to behave. Dad, you're an adult. You and Mom have been together for so many years. I'm supposed to teach you, she sighed. Support her. Maybe she'll talk to you. She didn't say anything to me. You should be there for her at a time like this. Andrew stammered, not knowing what the right thing to do was. I was thinking about something else. Suddenly he said, with Mom in the hospital feeling so bad. What about Grandma? Who will look after her? I guess we'll have to put her in a nursing home after all. Are you out of your mind? Lisa exclaimed. There are 2 of us, and we can manage. Mom did it all by herself. Dad, be patient. Take a vacation. I've got a couple weeks of school left first. Then I'll take over Grandma. It'll all work out. The main thing now is to get your mom back on her feet. Why are you standing there like a statue? Go see your mom. Yeah, I'm coming. The man's making a fuss. Maria was very happy. When she saw Andrew, she held out her arms to him. He came over, took her hands in his. I carefully sat down on the edge of the bed. The man felt extremely awkward. He had never been in such situations and did not know what to say. But Maria saved the situation. Andrew, I will not hide. I have everything bad. I didn't want to say it, but I've been diagnosed with a tumor. Nothing can be done about it. No one knows how long I have left, but I have a feeling it won't be long. Lisa knows everything. She's been talking to your doctor. Yes? Well, it's better she had to tell sooner or later. Andrew, I'm so scared. I don't want to be. I'm not ready to leave you. Maria, I've been thinking. Maybe we should look at other doctors. Maybe there are some that would do this kind of surgery. The man remembered what his daughter said. If there's even a chance, I'm ready to fight. Maria smiled weakly. Snow in large flakes fell from the sky, slowly swirling in the air. Lisa put her palms under it, slowly wandered down the street. Around sparkled and interrupted with colorful garlands, festively decorated shop windows. Slowly walking, the girl was run down by passersby hurrying to do some last-minute shopping for Christmas. It was December 24th, and of course, everyone was in a hurry to set the festive table to celebrate the holiday. One Lisa was not in a hurry this holiday, for her did not promise to be merry, although Mom tried so hard to create a mood in the house. She even made Daddy buy a Christmas tree. She herself put it on to bring pain and pretend that everything was fine. Lisa, all these New Year's preparations made her want to cry. Suddenly, this New Year would be the last one she would celebrate with her mom. In a very short period of time, their lives have changed dramatically, and not for the better. They used to live a carefree life, but now their life has taken a turn for the worse, loss and sadness. 6 months ago, they said goodbye to their grandmother. Then Lisa went to visit her mother in the hospital and stayed with her longer than usual. But the girl was calm because her father stayed with her grandmother. But he, as always, left her alone. And she didn't realize what she was doing and opened the gas in the kitchen. When Lisa came home before her father and opened the front door, a pungent odor hit her nose. Grandma, she screamed, running into the house. But it was too late. Wendy found on the kitchen floor. She was lying next to the stove. Lisa still did not understand where the strength came from in her, then that she was able to get her grandmother out of the house. Already in the yard, she tried to bring the old woman to her senses, but all her efforts failed. Lisa was very angry at her father for his carelessness. How could he have left her grandmother alone? But the man seemed to see no fault in it all. However, when he found out that her mother had written the house to her granddaughter, he wasn't just angry, he was furious. How come? The man yelled. She was insane. That will is null and void. Lisa, you must realize that wills are invalid. Mom hasn't been thinking straight lately. Give it up. Without inheriting, I must inherit this house. It's mine, you understand. It's only fair. My father built this house. I put a lot of work into it. You're my daughter. Am I gonna kick you out of here? But then Maria came to her daughter's defense. She won't give up anything. It was your late mother's wish. and I don't understand why you're getting so worked up. I knew about her decision, and the will was drawn up when the dementia was in its infancy. So you, Andrew, just have to accept your harsh reality. Lisa looked at her parents, and she didn't care. She was insulted by her grandmother, very disturbed by her mother, and she didn't give a damn about any inheritance. And I can refuse if it makes you feel better. The girl shrugged her shoulders indifferently. Andrew immediately jumped up. No, you will not refuse. Maria insisted. It was Wendy's will, and we'll leave it as it is. And Lisa took Mom's side. So the house where the family now lived was hers. Approaching the house, the girl added a step there waiting for her mom. She tried to give her face a cheerful look, went inside. "Hi, Mom," shouted Lisa. "I bought everything. Let's set the table." Maria was in the bedroom at that moment and quickly hid from her daughter's eyes the syringe she was using to make another dose of painkiller. Lisa could not know how badly her mother was feeling. It is necessary to stay on her feet this evening and not to spoil the holiday. Maria really wanted to celebrate it with her family because she also realized it could be her last. "Where is Dad?" The girl was surprised. "Is he not back from work yet?" "No," the mother helped her head negatively. "But I called him about 20 minutes ago. He said he'd be here soon." "Lisa, put this scarf on my head. It's beautiful. How can you do it?" And Maria handed her daughter a silk handkerchief. Lisa approached her mother from behind and began to fiddle with the handkerchief, her mother's chemotherapy bald head. She smiled as hard as she could and held back tears. Mom had lost a lot of weight. She had always been a petite woman as it was, but now she was just skin and bones. There were no eyebrows or eyelashes on her pale face. But the woman would not give up, and Lisa would not give up. She would cheer her mother on and smile to the last. Then they set the holiday table. Their favorite movie was on TV. Andrew called and said he would be a little longer. Lisa was very angry with her father for his behavior. Since her mother's illness, he had been home less and less often and had moved to another room, justifying his decision by the fact that he couldn't sleep next to his wife, who was in constant pain, constantly tossing and turning and moaning. But Lisa realized that the problem was far from non-access. The man simply didn't know how to behave with his wife, what to talk about. He can't look her in the eye, cheer her up, support her. And he found the perfect solution to self-dismissal, as, however, in the situation with the grandmother. He was there, and he wasn't. Lisa tried to get through to her father at first, but then she realized it was useless. I can't. Do you understand or not?" "I can't," Andrew told his daughter. "We all know exactly how this whole thing ends. All the doctors refuse to operate on her. What am I supposed to tell her now?" "Maria, don't worry, you're all right. We'll fix you. She's not stupid either, she understands everything. So why all these empty promises? We just have to support her. We're her family, and I'm here for her. But that's the best I can do. Don't demand more from me." Lisa nodded and lowered her head so that her father wouldn't notice the tears that ran to her eyes. She realized that another conversation with her father had not yielded any results. Today, Andrew came home close to 11:00 p.m. and sat down at the table looking like he was doing his chores. Maria tried to make jokes and lighten the mood. But her husband never gave her any encouragement. Lisa kept her eyes on her mother. From her appearance, she realized that it was becoming increasingly difficult for the woman to stay at the table with them. But she held on like a stalwart soldier. "Mom, why don't you lie down?" Lisa couldn't take it anymore. "It hurts a lot." "No, don't worry about it, sweetie. I'll stay up till 12 p.m. and we'll all have Christmas together." The woman smiled. "Maybe we could at least give you a shot of anesthetic. That's a good idea. I wouldn't mind a shot." Maria laughed. Maria didn't tell her daughter that she had already had one before she came. Lisa glanced at her father, but he sat sadly staring at the TV and pretended not to hear the conversation between his daughter and his wife. After the president's speech and the chimes, Maria drank a glass of champagne and got up from the table. "Well, that's fine. Now I think I'll go to bed. Let's you and me clean up tomorrow." "Don't worry, I'll do it myself. Go get some rest." Maria took her mother into the bedroom, helped her to lie down, covering her with a blanket. She came out quietly. Father in a jacket stood by the table and put something in a bag. "Where are you going?" "Surprised daughter." "To my friends," the man muttered. "Do you really think that New Year's Eve I will sit at home? And if Mom wakes up, as I explained to her your absence?" "Lisa, I spent Christmas with you. What more do you want from me? I've been invited since last night, but I declined. For your sake, your mom's dying, but I'm alive. I don't have to sit around with her tied up, and neither do you, by the way. Don't you have a place to celebrate?" The father looked at his daughter defiantly. "Yes, there is. I was invited too, but we shouldn't do this to you. It's mean. We're a family, and we have to support Mom." "Your business." The man waved his hand, and I left. A month passed since then. Lisa wandered around the house like a shadow, stroking her mother's things. A week had passed since Maria's funeral. Lisa couldn't make up her mind to move them or put them away. Even Mom's robe still hung on the back of the chair next to the bed. Dad wasn't home that night. However, as always, Lisa sat with her and held her hand until her last breath. Maria realized that the hour had come and asked her daughter to be with her at that moment. "Are you scared?" Lisa asked, swallowing her tears. "No, my daughter. It hurts. It's not scary and it doesn't hurt. I've heard that before you die, the pain goes away. And you know how I feel good now. But I feel like it's time. Daughter, don't cry. Understand that in my case, it's not death. It's a release from suffering. I'm tired, and I can assure you, it's what I want, so you should be happy for me. By the way, there's an envelope with money in the bottom drawer of the dresser. You're the one your father doesn't know about it. Your grandmother left me some, and the rest I saved up when I was still working. Don't tell your father about it. Keep it for your wedding. It was in the bank until the last minute, but I recently withdrew it. Dispose of it as you see fit. Mom, what wedding? What are you talking about? You got a girlfriend. I don't even have a boyfriend. You will, sweetheart, you will. You got your whole life ahead of you. One thing I do regret." Smiled sadly Maria, "that I didn't go to your wedding and I won't see my grandchildren." Lisa remembered the last conversation she had with her mother. She went to someone and, pulling out the lowest drawer, regretted there with her hand an envelope, but fumbled at once and, pulling it out of surprise, opened her eyes. There was a great deal of money there. Having quickly reread the bills, she shook her head. "Mom, how did you manage to save so much?" said the girl into the silence. "There's over $100,000 here. And after all, you always dreamed of a cruise, so did not fulfill your dream. Thank you, Mommy. I'll always remember you and love you. You were the best woman in the world." She sat down on the bed and burst into tears again. That's all she did for the entire week after her mother's funeral, was wander aimlessly around the house crying. To her father, she decided not to say anything about the money. He didn't show his best side. During Grandma and Mom's illness, he didn't need the trouble. He lived his life, trying not to touch anything. What could disturb his peace of mind? That morning, when her mother was gone, she still held her hand for a long time, unable to move. She gazed into her mother's serene face and realized that it was all over. Then she called her father. "Mom was gone," quietly said the girl into the phone. When the girl heard after this short question an exhalation of relief, "You at least pretend to be sorry," she shouted into the receiver. "I can hear in your voice that you are happy." "Daughter." "Oh, really?" The man was confused, calling Lisa that for the first time. "I'm not happy in any way. But you and I both know that Mom's done. It's over. You don't think she wanted it. You don't get to decide what she wanted or didn't want. You should have been there for her at that moment. Where are you now? Come here." "I don't know what I'm going to do now." Andrew left the phone. The girl looked hatefully at the receiver, from which short beeps were heard. She was very angry with her father. That feeling had not left her during the funeral or now. Lisa still spoke to her father through gritted teeth. Luckily for her, it was quite rare. But it should be noted that after her mother's death, her father had been in the house much more often. The girl wiped away the newly running tears and looked around. It is necessary to take herself in hand and re-hide the money, so that the father could not accidentally discover them. Let it lie there, it will come in handy, she thought. Even though she went to bed quite late, the next morning Lisa woke up before the alarm clock. Today was an important day. Lisa had a job interview. After graduation, she never found a job because she wanted to spend more time with her mom. And after the funeral, she realized that a job was her only chance not to get depressed. It was urgent to find something. As a result of a short search, she stumbled upon a position as a judge's secretary. And since she graduated law school, it was the right thing to do. The interview went as well as it could. A couple of days later, she got a call and was invited to her first day of work. At work, Lisa was distracted from sad thoughts. There was plenty of work and she liked it. To the perpetually sad Lisa, a good-looking guy, a driver named David, caught her eye there. She brushed him off for a long time, but as a result of his persistence, she gave in. First, she accepted an invitation to a cafe, then to a movie. And after a month, the young began to meet every night. David was 26 years old. He lived with his mother in a small 2-room apartment. And when he drove Lisa home in a company car and saw her house, he whistled in surprise. "Wow, do you live here alone?" "Well, why alone?" smiled the girl with her father. "But he appears very rarely, but you still have a very big house." "Yes, there's room for 2 families." I couldn't stop admiring it. David: "Yes, we used to have a big family too." Lisa sighed. "We had my mom and grandma, and now it's just my dad. But he and I don't communicate very well." "I understand from your talk that your dad didn't pay attention to your mom when she was sick." "That's a good point." "Well, neglected is an understatement." Lisa grinned. "He practically disappeared from our lives. He wasn't even home all the time. He wasn't interested in anything to do with Mom." "I don't know. I'm certainly not defending anyone, but it never occurred to me that he was just going through everything inside himself and didn't know what to do about it. Sometimes men behave very strangely out of sheer powerlessness. You said yourself that the doctors refused to operate on your mom. So what could he have done?" "Be there for her," the girl whispered. "Just be there." David and Lisa had been dating for 4 months. It was October, and the evenings were getting cooler and cooler outside. One day, as he walked Lisa home, David blew on his frozen hands and arms and said, "I'm so thirsty. I'm so thirsty." There was no place to sleep. And seeing the surprised look on the girl's face, he laughed. "Lisa, but I mean, maybe you can invite me to tea." Lisa took a quick glance at the house, and seeing the light in the windows, shook her head negatively no. "Some other time, Dad's home." "Well, that's what I mean." The boy insisted. "It's about time we met your father. Don't you think? I introduced you to your mom a long time ago, but you're still stalling. Or don't you believe I'm serious?" "I believe you. I don't believe you. But it's not time yet. We're just getting to know each other, and it's still very fragile. I'm not ready to take that step yet." "Okay, whatever you say. But let's agree that you will not delay with this." The guy agreed. And after standing for a while, they said goodbye. Ran into the house of production to the tips of his fingers. Lisa started to develop and immediately froze in place. For a second, it seemed to her that from the depths of the house came a woman's voice. She listened. Silence. It must have been imagined, the girl decided. The first thing she did was head for the shower, and when she came out of there, she was in for a surprise. "Lisa, let me introduce you to Molly. She will be living here with me from today," the father said, waiting for his daughter in the hallway. Standing next to him was a very young woman about 10 years older than Lisa herself. You could see that they were both very nervous, and Lisa was speechless. Who is this? And what did it mean that she was going to live here? And then it hit Lisa, and her legs gave out. "Did you cheat on Mom with this one? Am I reading that right? Lisa, Mom's dead and I'm alive. You don't think I should ever start another relationship with anyone?" "What new relationship? Mom's been gone 4 months. You wouldn't have had time." The girl was silent for a second, and then she covered her mouth with her hand and took a step back. "You wouldn't have made it." She continued her thought. "And if you're only with this one, you've been dating for a long time. Even in my mom's time, my mom knew you had someone. She told me once, but I didn't believe her, and I thought you were much better than that. And you're a scoundrel. You're a despicable traitor. Lisa, I would ask you to watch your language. You're talking to your father. You are the father. She wouldn't stop. A grown man. How old is this one? She nodded squeamishly at the new one. Yeah, she's a little older than me. The girl shouted, but defiantly addressed only her father, not noticing this unpleasant person next to her. But only for renaming herself from foot to foot, she decided to say, but actually I'm 32. And tell me please, what's the point of us hanging around in dark apartments when your father has such a huge house? There's plenty of room for all of us. Molly, shut up, Andrew told her quietly. I'm leaving with my daughter all by myself, Lisa. But Molly's right. Of course I remember what Grandma left you at home. But you must realize that I have a lot more rights to it. And by the way, Molly and I are taking the big bedroom. It's yours and your mom's. Lisa was tired of being surprised by this man's insolence. It used to be mine and Mom's until she got sick. But I want to remind you again that Mom's gone. And now it's just a bedroom. It shouldn't be empty. And it's gonna be perfect for us. Molly and I are getting married soon, and we'll probably have kids. What's the big deal? You didn't think I'd bury myself alive after Maria died. That's absurd. Lisa went into the living room and sat on the couch and put her hands on her head. Dad, you could have waited a year to have some decency. You have the nerve to show up here. Why can't we live in this house? Molly spoke up again. If anything, you got this house illegally. Your grandmother was senile. I told Andrew to contest the damn will, but he wouldn't listen to me. Molly, shut your mouth, the man shouted, but it was too late. Lisa jumped up from the couch. Ah, so you were saying. That means you've been together since before Grandma was alive. I hate you, you vile traitor. She pushed her father out of the way and ran off to her room, slamming the door loudly. But I told you to keep quiet. You would have handled it yourself. The man grumbled. Oh, Andrew, interrupting. Shrugged the woman, let's go, better have dinner. Everything is cold already, probably. And Lisa in the room fell on the bed and sobbed. How so, she thought. Basically, he got involved with that nasty wench when Mom didn't even know about his illness. The advice she gave was trashy. Lisa cried half the night and didn't fall asleep until the morning, but she woke up earlier than usual. She quickly got ready for work and quietly left the house. She didn't want to see those people. However, the whole working day she scolded herself for this morning weakness. On the contrary, she had to show them that she was the owner of her own house. And she, Lisa, was in charge, not this Molly. Ah, what a nasty name. And the girl cringed at the thought. After work, she was waiting for him, as always. You went to visit me. Mom promised to bake a pie with potatoes and mushrooms. Your favorite. It's just getting chilly walking in the streets. I don't want to. David, no offense, but I've got that nasty Molly to show home. Who's really in charge? I'm not gonna hide from her anymore. I'm gonna walk around, watch TV in the living room. Basically, just act normal. I'm already regretting the cowardly tail wagging this morning. I'm still reeling from Dad's prank. Lisa, what did you expect? David was surprised. Your father is not an old man. He can't spend the rest of his life alone. Because you decided to. I don't understand, and whose side am I on? She looked angrily at the guy. I'm on your side. You can be sure of that. But I don't quite understand my father's guilt either. Then you better be quiet, or we'll have a fight. The girl muttered and walked forward. Then she stopped abruptly and turned 180 degrees to face David. The guy from Surprise almost knocked her off her feet. Do you really think it's normal that a man buried his wife, with whom he lived for 25 years, and whom he claims to have loved? Only 4 months later, he brings in a replacement. Would every man do that? And don't tell me it's the norm. There are, after all, elementary rules of decency, and it's not for me to tell him. And if he, having lived to his years, still doesn't understand it, that I won't allow him to wipe his feet on my mother's memory. David, seeing how angry he was, decided not to answer, so as not to worsen the already difficult situation, and just shrugged and hugged her. Lisa entered the house defiantly, noisily, loudly, and she walked into the living room and tossed her bag carelessly onto the couch. But what she saw shocked her. There was a huge box in the middle of the room that was already half filled with her mom's stuff and pictures. Meanwhile, Molly was trying to take her portrait of her off the wall. Lana pulled her hands away from her mom in a voice that wasn't her own. Lisa saw Molly flinched in surprise and almost fell off the stool. "Are you scaring me?" she snapped. "She's gone, and we live here now. You will have to accept that fact, Lisa." Father came running from the bedroom and realized what had happened at once. "Lisa, but Molly's right. Look around at all of Mom's stuff. You can't do that. Even according to the rules, you have to get rid of dead people's things, otherwise they're there." He put his index finger up. "They'll never find peace. Do you want Mom to suffer in there? That's one thing. And second of all, Molly's the newest member of our family. She's not comfortable with all this. If someone's uncomfortable in my house, I'm not keeping anyone, but Mom's stuff stays where it is." I touched it. She looked angrily at her father. "I'll rip your hands off. You heard me well enough. Don't touch anything here." Andrew saw that the daughter was furious and decided not to argue. As long as she was in such a state, it was useless to sway rights. "Lisa will get into a fight." All right, Lisa, what do you say?" Dad's tone became more peaceful. "We'll leave Mom's portrait where it is. But these things, no way." Molly was stubborn. "I told you, this place will be just like it was when Mom was alive. It's a mess." Molly shrugged her shoulders. "Decide amongst yourselves. But personally, I don't want to live amongst pictures of a groupie." And she left the room. Proudly squared her shoulders and turned up her nose. Lisa barely suppressed the urge to throw something heavy at her back. Andrew ran after Molly, and Lisa was left alone in the living room. She went to the box and pulled out the pictures. This one was her favorite. It showed the three of them, Mom, Dad, and little Molly with her arms outstretched to the side, in Dad's arms picturing an airplane. They're laughing. It was a happy family after all. Why is it like this? The girl wiped away a newly running tear and began to reach for the rest of her things. "I won't allow it. Mommy, I won't let you erase my memories of you. You'll always be with me." 2 months later, Andrew and Molly consummated their relationship. Only 6 months had passed since Maria's death. Andrew did not hesitate to rent a restaurant and invite all his friends there. Lisa refused to go to the wedding. During these 2 months of living together, Lisa and Molly began to communicate in a poor way. Living under the same roof, the girls had to do it. In the morning, David came to Lisa's house, and when she opened the door, she was surprised to see that the guy had degenerated into a suit. "Where are you going?" She looked at him suspiciously. "Nowhere." He was confused. "I just thought that if you thought of something and accepted my father's invitation, I'd be ready, so to speak." Lisa smiled in vain. "Mom, no, it's only 6 months. It's indecent. He's unscrupulous. But I'm not." "Lisa, you know they should have signed otherwise." The boy stopped and stared at the floor, shifting from foot to foot. "You know something?" She looked at him suspiciously again. "Oh no, spill it." "Okay, please," he nodded. "A week or so ago, while I was waiting for you, your father and Molly and I were having tea in the kitchen. So he told me that Molly was pregnant, but they didn't know how to tell you, so they asked me. Anyway, they were both afraid of your reaction." "Pregnant?" Lisa shrieked. "Yes, the father's in his 50s. What kids?" "But Molly is 32. Naturally, she wants kids." Lisa, where at that moment the dishes left over from dinner sponged the family in the sink. "He wants me and my mom there." What was he? Now they will give birth to a child and will enjoy life here, in the house in which my mother was tortured recently. Where is justice in this world? David, seeing that Lisa is all upset and cautiously suggested, "Boris, how about going to my mom or to a cafe?" "Why did I come here for nothing? Can I spend the night at your place?" Lisa asked unexpectedly. David nodded. "I don't want to see their happy faces tonight." And she was silent for a moment, as if she were thinking something over, and then she said, "David, would you like to move here to this house? We'd start living together." "But thank God," exclaimed the educated guy. "Do you agree to marry me?" "Well, not exactly." Lisa corrected him carefully. Let's just live together and get to know each other. Dating is one thing, but living together is another. At least for a year. Don't you know how many divorces there are around? It's because of these hasty marriages. Let's not step on someone else's toes. Wait, David frowned. Do you want to live with me or do you want to mess with your dad and Molly? Keep it simple. Lisa waved him off. I want to live with you and we'll call it a day. I'm going to get dressed and let them get their own dishes. And she went into the bedroom. Lisa didn't get home until the following evening. She and David got busy moving. Packed up all the guy's stuff. David decided to take the computer desk with him because it was brand new. And it was decided to order a truck. Satisfied, David and Lisa drove up to the house in the evening. The girl went inside first and ran into her father and his new wife in the living room. Dad, I have a joyous thing to tell you. Well, for me at least. You and I have decided to live together. He's moving in here. What's the big deal? She stopped halfway through, looking around the room. Where's Mom's portrait? Where's her favorite chair? Andrew stretched out like a string. His eyes were anxious, running, and it was obvious he didn't know what to say. His daughter wanted him. His wife answered and opened her mouth. But the girl bullet flew out of the living room, opened the closet. Mom from the bedroom, she couldn't hold back her tears. The shelves held emptiness. Also missing from the room was the bed, the very bed on which Maria had passed away. Where did you put Mom's things? Lisa hissed through gritted teeth. Taken away. Where else? Molly gloated. Sent to a social center. It helps low-income families. It's all good stuff, so let them serve the community. What's in the closet? They're just gathering dust. Your mom would be happy about that, I'm sure. Who the hell are you to decide anything? I warned you, and now you're taking it out on yourselves. Calm down, Molly bellowed. Andrew and I are family now. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're having a baby soon. And I don't want to raise it in this mausoleum where every single thing reminds me of your dead mother. We have to move on. Her life is over, but ours goes on. Lisa stared at Molly and couldn't say a word out of indignation. Andrew came to the rescue. Lisa, Molly's right about something. You can't do that. Of course you can't do that. Seeing that Lisa was silent, it's our house too. Your house blew up, girl. I didn't mishear. It's my house and mine alone. I've already accepted the fact that you've moved in here, that you've decided to have a baby. The only thing I asked you was, how do people not touch what used to be Mom's? What's the bottom line? Where's her portrait? The chair? And all the pictures of her? Lisa, don't worry about it. The pictures here, counted Andrew, opening the bottom drawer. He realized that the situation was heated to the max. We put everything in here, and the portrait is behind the desk. What, did you think we threw it out, or something? And he laughed nervously. What's all the noise and no fight? Asked, smiling David, when laden with 2 huge bags, entered the living room. But when he saw the faces of everyone present, the smile slipped off his face. Andrew, do you object to my living here? Is that why you're fighting? I've got stuff to unload. Unload it. Lisa answered coldly in her father's place, but don't let go of the car. It will be useful for one more move today. And seeing the surprised looks of those present, she explained that Dad and his new wife were moving out of here. What do you mean? Molly didn't understand. But Andrew understood and decided to act differently. He came to his daughter, put his arm around her shoulders and said, Daughter, but don't get too excited. You're a big girl, and you must realize that this is my house too. You can't just take us out of here like that. Why not? Lisa grinned. Yes, I can. Grandma left it to me. I'm the sole owner. You never wondered why she did what she did. Maybe she knew your mean soul. She saw right through you, and now I understand her. The girl wanted to howl in frustration, but she held her temper and said stubbornly, Go away. It's my final decision. You no longer live here. You have no right to banish Molly. Andrew, tell her. I do. It's the law, my dear. And if you don't get out of here voluntarily, I'll be forced to call the police. Lisa, why don't we all just calm down, go to bed, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, fresh in our minds. But where are we going at night? Asked Andrew. I don't care. You didn't care about my condition when you got rid of my mother's things, even though you knew my attitude. So why should I care about you? And by the way, I won't change my mind tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, or a year from now. Let's hurry up. It was pouring like a bucket outside. When Andrew went down to the subway, the rain was just starting to fall. But when he got to his station, went up to the surface, the man was even a little confused. How on earth is he going to get home? There was no umbrella with him. He didn't see much point in waiting it out because it was clear that the rain had charged for a long time, so he would have to leave. Andrew skipped briskly down the street toward home, muttering curses to himself about the car not starting this morning to Molly. And indeed this whole life. From the subway station at the rental apartment was a 5-minute walk at a brisk pace. And in that time, the man was soaking wet. Running into the courtyard of a 9-story building, he glanced irritably at his crossover, standing in the parking lot. Of course, the car needed maintenance. Andrew had always been proud of his car and had long ago realized that the starter needed to be replaced. What was about to happen happened. In the morning, the car refused to start. He ran down the driveway, leaving puddles on the floor behind him. He walks to the elevator. Entering the apartment, the man undressed and tossed his shoes aside. "Molly," he shouted from the doorway. "I need new shoes right away. The soles are sticking off. I'll stop by the store tomorrow before work. So please don't count on the rest of my paycheck." With these words, the man went into the only room of the apartment they were renting. The room was quite spacious, but still they had to sleep and spend their leisure time in it. And the baby would be born soon. His wife was lying on the bed, putting her hands on her huge belly and watching TV. When she heard her husband's words, she clumsily sat up and indignantly replied, "What do you mean don't count on the rest of your paycheck? You still have $400 left. What are you, shoes? Are you going to buy gold? But I'm not going to the market. I'm not going to wear cheap shoes, and I need money. I need to buy a new starter for my car. I can't ride the subway." "All people ride the subway, they're fine. They're alive and well," she said. And the woman raised her voice. "How many times can I talk about your car? You drive such an expensive car, and we live in a rented apartment. I told you to sell it. And then we will have a contribution to the mortgage. We will be able to buy a normal apartment, and most importantly our own. God, I'm sick of you talking to me like this, aren't I?" screamed Andrew. "I've told you 100 times. I'm not selling my car. I have a house. Lisa has a temper, but he's resilient. I'm going to visit her again one of these days. What's the point? She won't let us in anymore. She even kicked you out. What are you talking about? Besides, I don't want to live in a house where someone else is running the place. Andrew, we're having a baby and we should have our own place. And you have to say goodbye to this house. It'll never be yours again. You know what I'll tell you? You're crying, Andrew. You want your own place. Buy it. And you wouldn't even consider my car. Did you make dinner?" Molly struggled to get out of bed, holding her hands on her lower back and jutting out her big belly. "Andrew, you didn't even ask me how I felt today?" "Pregnancy is not a disease," the man frowned. "I take it from your words that your wife doesn't have one again. What kind of woman are you? My ex always had time for everything, even when she was sick. You're bequeathing me your exes again, woman. I don't want to hear about her anymore. She was so good that you used to take everything from her to me. Yeah, I didn't love her, but in terms of domesticity. Maria was good. Not like you." "Oh yeah," Molly exclaimed. "You want a housewife. Look at you. You're supposed to provide for me. What do I have? We're about to have a baby. No crib, no stroller. We live in a rented 1-bedroom. You're the one who drives in an expensive car, and you're going to buy yourself leather shoes. I see you're not used to denying yourself anything. That's what you should be thinking about. Yeah, fuck you." Andrew threw Andrew and turned around and went to the bathroom, pulling off his wet clothes on the way. He was so sick of these scandals with Molly. Molly wasn't like that before. When he was just showing books when he was living with his wife, she was a soft cat. But now she's a saw. Always dissatisfied and always demanding things from him. He's not going to sell his car, no matter how much she squeals. A real man should have a nice car to emphasize his status. Maria never demanded anything. Andrew now clearly saw all the advantages of living with her. Too bad she was sick. And so, if only there could be a lot of people like Molly. But he didn't plan to go to her at first, until Maria got sick. A comfortable life with his wife suited Andrew fine with Molly and Molly with him. He expected to get the same. But she turned out to be quite different in character. Thinks only of herself and takes care of herself. Lying on the bed all day long, Andrew was seething with anger as he drew himself a hot bath, undressed, and tried to relax. It didn't work. It's a whistling bathtub with slick tile on the walls. Everything here is foreign to him. I can't wait to get home, Lisa. What a bummer. The man still couldn't believe his daughter would do this to him, kick him out of his own home. Andrew had thoughts of contesting the will, but it was a long time after the entry. And besides, the daughter worked as a judge's assistant and probably had the right connections. He realized that the case would be a loser, but it was becoming unbearable to live like this. Molly, unlike Maria, constantly beats his brains out, demands money herself, earning nothing. Andrew has his own needs: clothes, car, gasoline. Plus, he's paying for this apartment himself, and there's a baby on the way. Andrew already regretted agreeing to Molly's pregnancy. At the time, it seemed like everything would be different. He wanted an heir. Having an only daughter, Andrew wanted a boy. It almost came true. At the ultrasound scan, my wife was clearly told that she was having a boy. But in the light of recent events and domestic difficulties, Andrew was no longer happy about this news. The man lay with his eyes closed. The water in the bathtub was beginning to cool down. He should go out and cook for himself. His stomach was sucking itself. And then Molly screamed hysterically from the room. Andrew, get over here. I need your help now." Andrew whined as he came out of the bathroom, hastily wiping off the tub with a towel. Then he wrapped that towel around his hips and went into the room. Molly was lying on the bed with her legs tucked under her, hugging her stomach. She squealed incessantly. "Honey, I'm in pain. I think labor is starting. Call an ambulance." His wife's scream cut his ears. The man wrinkled his nose. "What labor, Molly? It's still early. You'll get over it. I'm telling you something's wrong. Call an ambulance now. She's screaming now." "Come on, I'll call now," Andrew muttered, and went unhappily into the hallway, where he left his phone on the nightstand. His irritation was growing. The ambulance was coming. He had to get dressed. He would be hungry again. He wanted to eat something hot and stretch his legs on the couch. How could he be sick of Molly and all this life? And Lisa and David, holding hands, skipped merrily out of the beautiful building with the registry office in huge letters on the door. They had just applied for marriage registration, and in a month, they would become husband and wife. David was more excited than the girl. He insisted on legalizing the relationship for a long time, because Lisa was happy with everything. Now the girl was happy at the mood of the guy, laughed and acted like a schoolgirl. David was probably right to insist on marriage. After all, they had been living together for a long time, and now they would officially become a family. A family. Lisa had missed that so much. After she had kicked her father and his wife out of the house, he had tried several times to talk to her, to butter her up. The man was eager to go home, but Lisa was adamant. Dislike for her father had been accumulating in her like a snowball. Ever since her mother's illness, when Lisa had seen his indifferent attitude. Having brought Molly into the house, 4 months after his wife's death, Andrew added fuel to the fire burning in his daughter's heart. And the last drop dripped when he and his wife got rid of Mom's things. Since then, Lisa had felt almost a hatred for her father and could admit it to herself. It was unpleasant for the girl to see Andrew, to talk to him behind his benevolence. She saw the falseness, the selfishness. The smile slid off Lisa's face. Barely had she thought of her father. And David immediately stopped, holding his future wife by the arm. "What are you doing?" Did she turn around? "Look," showed the guy with his eyes on the glass showcase, behind which you could see appetizing pastries eclairs. "Your favorite. There are tables here. Can I get a coffee from the vending machine? Let's go in." Let's celebrate the application." Lisa smiled again, putting all thoughts of his father out of his mind. The eclairs were lush and delicious. The girl, flying them for both cheeks, expressed cream, and David gently wiped the filling with a napkin from her face. One of the sales girls admired them, elbowed the other. "Look, youth, love. Where are my 17 years? They're not 17, they'll be older. What's the difference? It's still love." The saleswoman sighed. At that time, David returned to the question. "Lisa, you and I still haven't decided how we're going to celebrate our wedding. A restaurant is expensive. But I told you, David, my mom left me money for the wedding. I can pay for the restaurant. But I've been thinking. I don't have a lot of relatives. Friends from school can go to a cafe. Maybe we won't be fancy. We'll just sign and use my mom's money to go on a wedding trip." The guy's out of breath. "What are you saying?" "Mom left you so much that we'll have enough for a trip." "That's enough," laughed Lisa. "I know that's what Mom would have wanted. She's dreamed of traveling all her life, but she hasn't had the time. She'd be happy for me too, and she wouldn't mind using her savings in this way." David, eyes bulging, looked at the glowering Lisa and chose his words carefully. He said ingratiatingly, "Lisa, I realize, of course, that it's none of my business and none of my money, but we're going to be husband and wife soon. Why don't you tell me how much money you have? I'll tell you why not. My mom left me $100,000. The girl said nonchalantly. "Wow," whistled the guy, "and you want to spend such money on a simple trip?" "Well, first of all, not a wedding trip. And second of all, not all the money's going to go. There's gonna be some left over. Yeah, it's still a huge amount of money. And if you don't spend it, you can find a more rational use for it. For example," Lisa smiled, "but I don't even know how to tell you." David hesitated and decided to start from afar. "Look, Lisa, and yet we are walking with you. So to speak, a cobbler without boots. I've wanted a car since I was 18, but my mom, as you've noticed, is not a wealthy woman, and on my salary, I can't afford it. But now imagine if with this money you and I buy a car to work, on it from work, too, in the evening in the city can ride around the city, to go where we want, yes, even in a neighboring city to ride. It's not a problem. Shopping again. Just imagine how our lives will change." Seeing the surprise in Lisa's eyes, David hastened to add, "No, of course. The car will be registered to you. It's your money, I understand." She carefully put the paper cup with coffee on the table and looked at her future husband with a confused look. "I don't know, David, I never thought about it. You realize I don't have a driver's license, and I don't even want one. And if we buy cars, we won't have money for the wedding or for traveling. Let's have a modest celebration in a cafe, like you said. We've got our whole lives ahead of us for traveling. We'll make it." He convinced the girl. "All right, I'll think about it," Lisa replied. But David already saw that the girl began to hesitate, and he would be able to convince her. Coming out of the cookery, she dragged the guy to the park. She wanted to go for a walk in the fresh air, but he had lost his spirit and wasn't listening to what his girlfriend was saying. David plunged into thoughts about the car. In the end, the couple decided to go home, stopping at the grocery store on the way. To get something for dinner, they opted for chicken. Lisa decided to cook it whole in the oven, which she did when they got back to the house. David did not help, although he had come into the kitchen with the girl. He picked up his phone and busied himself with studying car ads. "Lisa, look, how about this gorgeous truth? And guess what? We can afford it, but it's underpriced. It's suspiciously beat up." Lisa frowned. "David, I haven't even agreed to buy the car yet. I said I'd think about it." "Yeah, think," he said. "I'm just dreaming. I can dream." He flashed a smile at Lisa. But after a few minutes, she was infected with the enthusiasm of the guy and sat down next to him. Putting her head on his shoulder, she also began to look at the cars. Why not, Lisa thought. A car is an investment. You can sell it later too. David's eyes are burning. He must have wanted one for a long time. My salary is not bad for our town. Why should the money just sit there? David, why are you only looking at used cars? We don't have enough money for a new one, David said. Suddenly, the phone came to life in the guy's hands. It was ringing and the person sitting next to him. Lisa saw that it was her father calling. She abruptly threw her head off her fiance's shoulder. "What is this? Why is he calling you? Are you two communicating?" "Well, he called a couple times, asking about your mood. Pick up the phone and put it on speaker." Lisa nodded at the phone. David did as she said. "David, hello. I'm not calling Lisa. She won't pick up the phone anyway. I'm at the gate. Can you come out?" Lisa went out to her father's with David, even though she didn't want to see Andrew. She was very curious as to why he had shown up again. The man stood near the gate, nervously smoking a cigarette. When he saw his daughter coming out, he seemed even more agitated as the fingers holding the cigarette began to nudge. "Hi, Lisa. It's good that you two went out together. I can't get home. You took my keys away. What are you doing here?" The girl asked me in a pushy voice. "What do you want again?" "I want to go home. Alone." Andrew threw down his cigarette and stomped furiously on it with the tips of his shoes. Lisa glanced at his feet and noticed that the boot had a cool egg sole. But even my fancy dad in tattered clogs ran wryly the thought in the girl's head. "Well, first of all, this isn't your home anymore, and you can't come back here. I'm tired of explaining that to you. And at the same time, I'm wondering why alone. Where's Molly?" Andrew, not having time to put out one cigarette butt, began to shake a new cigarette out of the pack. Then he covered it for a long time, choosing words. "In the maternity ward. By the way, you had a brother. But it doesn't matter now. I only now understood, realized that they couldn't be my family. You know, I don't want to live with them. My family is you. And your mom used to be. Shut up." Boiled over by the initially calm Lisa. Not one word about mom. "Now, I don't think we were ever your family. Even grandma is your own mom. You're the one who didn't want to look after her and didn't. Like you were glad when she was gone. And Mom, I've thought so much about what we did wrong. I wish you had helped her more with Grandma, helped around the house. Maybe she would have had time to go to the hospital sooner. And she'd be alive now. You never thought about that?" "No, of course not. Why would you? You're always thinking about yourself. Now you have a son and you're going to leave them. Do you have any idea how disgusting that looks? Seriously expecting me to let you into this house. For the 1000th time, go away and don't come back here. I don't want you to know anymore. David, let's go home." Lisa dragged Lisa by the sleeve of the guy who was still not participating in the conversation. Andrew stood staring with exasperation at the gate closing and in front of his nose, not noticing the bullwhip burning his fingers. What a nasty girl. She both looked like Maria and didn't at the same time. Maria never had such a nasty temper. The man tossed the filter, leaving the burn on his fingers and gate. For now, it is possible to go back to the rented apartment. Molly is not there anyway. Tomorrow morning, he'll get to work fixing the car. Once the car is fixed, he'll put his stuff in it and move out. Not the whole truth Andrew has told his daughter now, but only part of it. He actually had a son, but it was unknown how long that child would live. Amidst the scandal, Molly went into premature labor, but the man believed that it was her own fault. "Don't be so hysterical. When the ambulance took his wife, Andrew didn't go with them." "What would I do there?" he answered. A question to the paramedics question. "They won't let me go into labor with her anyway. She'll call me herself." Lisa called 24 hours later. She was sobbing so hard into the receiver that at first the man couldn't pick up anything she was saying. "So I don't get it. You gave birth to a boy. Well, what are you carrying?" "Andrew, there was a woman on the phone. Come talk to the doctor. I don't understand what he's explaining to me. I think there's something wrong with our son. They didn't even show him to me. They took him straight to the intensive care unit. Come, Andrew, I'll be right there." The man hung up the phone and, cursing his wife, called a cab. Molly is such an idiot. She can't understand what could be in there with the boy. Probably taken away because he's premature. That fool is crying again. Andrew consoled himself with such thoughts, but still it was disturbing. And after talking to the head doctor of the maternity ward, this anxiety turned into panic horror. Andrew left the office as if drunk, and without even remembering Molly waiting for him headed for the elevator. With a quick step, he left the hospital gate and walked down the street, not knowing where he was going. Scraps of phrases, said by the head doctor, kept popping up in his head. The boy was born with a severe heart defect, urgently need an operation. There's no telling how long the child will live without it. They do this kind of surgery in Germany. Do you have the money? Surgery, illness, money. Andrew leaned against the iron fence of the hospital and clutched his head with his hands, ignoring the bewildered stares of passersby. How familiar is all this? And how tiresome already? First Mom, then Maria, and now the child. What kind of curse is this on him, that he is surrounded by sick people? And why? Why does he have to deal with all this? Maria was easier. She demanded nothing and died quietly in front of him, looking at him with a devoted dog's gaze. Molly's not like that. She'll demand that he decide. He's not omnipotent. Where is he going to get the money for treatment in Germany? And even if he had the money, it's not worth spending it on a child who's obviously sick. We don't know if the operation will help him. And why should he do it? Because he hates illness and everything that comes with it. It's Molly's fault for giving birth to a sick kid. Andrew was already having a hard enough time living with her. Yeah, that's right. I mean, he was thinking about leaving Molly. So why not do it now? I mean, he doesn't need all this trouble. He can't take it, doesn't want it. Andrew smirked. So let everyone think I'm scum, even though it's all just a close call. But I don't care what she thinks. And Lissa won't even know about the child's illness. Remembering his daughter, the man realized where he had to go. He pulled away from the fence and headed toward the bus stop, determined to try to make it home one more time. In the pocket of his expensive coat, his cell phone rang incessantly. There was no need for the man to take it out of his pocket. He already knew who was calling him. Molly, of course. She's worried sick. But he doesn't want to know anymore. It's a waste. Molly called her husband again, and again he didn't pick up. Then her husband's cell phone either went dead or he turned it off. The woman's head was spinning. After gathering her courage, she got up from the hospital bed and vowed to the head doctor to talk to her herself. I just explained to your husband. He left my office about 15 minutes ago. Hadn't you two seen each other? The older woman was surprised. What? What did you explain to my husband? I didn't understand. Tell me again why my boy is in intensive care. The chief physician once again described the situation clearly, succinctly, and in words that made Molly want to howl, but she held on. That's how much money I need to keep my son alive. And you told my husband that. It makes sense to me. He went looking for it. What am I supposed to do? Well, what do you do? The doctor shrugged. If you feel fine, in 3 days we'll discharge you without the baby. Noticing Molly's mute question, she immediately said, The boy will stay in the intensive care unit. He is under the machine. Let's hope that the issue with the operation will be resolved quickly, because we do not know how long the baby will last without it. Molly. I really wanted to believe that her husband was looking for money and months looking for a way out. But he never got in touch with her. In 3 days, when the woman was discharged and she arrived at the apartment where they lived, she found neither her husband nor his belongings there. Lissa was at work that day but could not concentrate. The girl was constantly distracted by the running phone, which received pictures of cars. It was David who sent them incessantly. He has no work at all, Lissa thought irritably. He doesn't do anything on his own. He's distracting me. He's going crazy with this car. He can't decide which one to buy. And he's bugging me. The landline phone rang shrilly on the desk. Lissa shuddered, remembering that for the umpteenth time, she had forgotten to turn down the volume on it. It was the security guard sitting on the first floor at the entrance to the courthouse. Lissa, there's a girl asking for you, rather insistently. Could you come down? Puzzled as to who it could be, Lissa went down to the first floor and was very surprised to see visitors. She wasn't even surprised that Molly had come to see her, but at how she looked. Molly was without a gram of makeup, with her hair messily gathered in a ponytail, and had lost a lot of weight since the last time Lissa had seen her. Her father is staying with you, she pounced on her without saying hello. Let's go outside, suggested Lissa, not wanting to find out. with the guards immediately pricking up their ears. They stepped out onto the high porch of the courthouse. "What happened at your place? And why did you come to me to look for your husband? Isn't he staying with you? I was wondering where else we'd go. He left us when he found out his son was born with a heart defect. He left us." "What defect?" Lisa asked him involuntarily. "He didn't tell me anything about it." "Yes, he came to ask to come home and told me he had a son. And naturally, I didn't let him in. But he didn't tell me anything about the baby being sick. Yes, he just ran away. Hysterical, Molly. I came home from the hospital and the apartment was empty. His things are gone. So you've been discharged from the hospital. Who did you leave the baby with? Don't you listen to me? My son is sick. He's in the ICU under a machine. He needs an emergency operation that costs a lot of money. This operation can only be done in Germany." As soon as Andrew found out, he was gone, Molly's hands clasped together. Lisa was shocked. "Bastard, what a bastard," she whispered. "How can you do this to people? First his grandmother, then his mom, and now his own son. And what did you do? If a man comes to you from his dying wife, how can he be normal? How can you rely on a man like that? You're not far from him yourself, since you got involved with a married man. I didn't know he was married at first. I found out when I was already in that relationship. And they kept telling me that they were living badly, that they'd be separated soon. And I didn't find out about your mother's illness until after she died. It's true, Lisa. I knew Andrew was unscrupulous. But not that unscrupulous. That's his son. And your brother, by the way. You hear that, brother?" Molly grabbed Lisa's forearm in a frenzy. "Lisa, I'm allowed to visit today. Come with me. Let's go see your brother." "Why did you pull away, Lisa?" She was so cold, walking outside in her blouse. But somehow she still couldn't turn around and walk away from this almost insane woman. "Why do I have to go there?" she asked, not hearing the answer. "Why would you? What if? What if he's gone? You'll never see your brother again." "What do you mean he'll be gone? How can you say that? Look for money, Molly. There are charities to apply to. I've already reached out, but it takes time. My son, unfortunately, doesn't have that time. Lisa, at least look at his pictures. You can't see very well. They won't let me get close, but look how pretty my boy is." Molly frantically flipped through the pictures on her phone. "So stop being hysterical," Lisa said sternly. "You don't have to act like that now, do you? You have to pull yourself together, find the means, save your son, and don't rely on your father. He won't help you. He's always been like this. It's a shame Mom didn't see it sooner. You should have realized it when you married him." Lisa went back to her desk. She sat down at her desk, but she couldn't work. It was hard on her soul to feel bad about her father's behavior and hard to think about the baby. Molly did not calm down and started sending Lisa pictures of the boy. Lisa opened one of them and enlarged it. "You can't see very well." Sure enough, the baby is shrouded in wires and tooting lying behind the glass. Such a tiny face. And he doesn't look anything like his father. Maybe like his grandmother, yes, the shape of his nose is exactly like his grandmother's. Lisa's heart ached. Maybe it was a mistake not to go to the hospital with Molly. So what? So what? So the father's a jerk and Molly's a jerk. But the kid's innocent. And he's really her brother. The phone screen bent in the girl's hands. A new message from David popped up. A picture of a car and a signature. "I finally found it. We'll take this one. The car, the baby. The baby or the car." Lisa looked from one picture to the next. She didn't ask Molly how much money she needed for the surgery, but $100,000 is a lot of money. So a baby brother's life for the price of a car. No. Lisa shook her head, shook out the bad thoughts. I shouldn't think about it. It's not my problem, after all. Besides, that money's my mom's. Would she want to give it to a child born of adultery? The workday came to an end and David and Lisa took the bus home. All the way home, David talked about the advantages of having a private car. How after they bought it, they would be able to get home in style without having to sit in the evening, staring at the TV or walking through the rainy streets. They will be able to afford to drive around the city. But Lisa didn't listen to the groom. She was so sick of this conversation. About the car. The girl was thoughtful all evening. She was silent or answered inappropriately. When David asked Lisa the reason for her mood, Lisa gave him a brief outline of the situation. Yes, it's news. Well, your father certainly does, David exclaimed. But what's it got to do with you? What are you getting so worked up about? It's your problem. It's Molly's problem now. You should have used your head. Lisa herself realized that it was Molly's problem, but the worry didn't let her go until she went to bed and fell into a restless sleep. And in her dream, her mother came to her, beautiful, young in a dress. The two of them were walking along the riverbank, throwing pebbles into the still smooth waters. Maria was very cheerful at first, but suddenly she became very serious. She brought her face close to her daughter's face and looked into her eyes. "Daughter, why do you think so badly of me?" That confused Lisa. "Mom, why did you see that?" "You think very badly of me," Maria shook her head. "You know me better than anyone in the world. So why?" "Why?" Almost screaming, the woman Lisa jerked the bed and woke up. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead. The dream was so clearly imprinted in her memory, and the girl instantly realized what her mother had rebuked her for. Yes, of course, her mother would not hesitate to give that money for the boy's treatment. How could Lisa have thought that about her? The half-open windows of the car set a light breeze blowing his hair. He rolled through the city, carelessly holding the steering wheel with one hand and catching envious glances of exhausted people standing at bus stops. David was so happy that he involuntarily smiled. And then a man in a DPS uniform jumped out on the road, waved his baton in the direction of the military car, and blew his whistle forcibly. Turning to the side of the road, the guy stopped, but the traffic police officer continued his unpleasant whistling. This whistle blew out in a bathtub. His brain irritated him, and back on the bed, the guy finally woke up. What had been whistling in his dream turned out to be the sharp ringing of the alarm clock. He squeezed his eyes shut, wanting to return to his wonderful aviation, to prolong the pleasant moment. But the ringing alarm clock offered no such opportunity. Larry turned it off, finally, Lisa, but she didn't respond. The girl wasn't in bed next to the guy, or in the room. Shit, is she deaf or what? David thought, thinking that Lisa was in the kitchen making breakfast. He had to get up himself. He turned off the alarm clock that was annoying him and stretched sweetly. What a great dream he'd had. Well, nothing. Soon this dream would become reality. David decided to go first to the bathroom and then to the kitchen to see Lisa. But the silence in the house alarmed him, and he quickly went through the rooms in search of his girlfriend and realized that he was alone at home. It was very strange where she could go so early. The guy had no time to make any conclusions on this account because the culprit of his thoughts burst into the house. Lisa flew in like a whirlwind rose neft from the morning frost. "But happy at war, you're already up, and I've been up since the middle of the night. Imagine, I dreamed about my mother today, and I realized how I should do the right thing. I wanted to wait till morning, she couldn't, so I called a cab, went to Molly's at night." "Why did you go to Molly's?" David wondered. "I thought you were feuding with her. What did you want at her place at night?" "I gave her all my money for my brother's treatment. Seemed like the right thing to do." "It's the right thing to do. I don't get it. The freeze, that's some of your money." He stopped talking abruptly, beginning to make sense of the phrase. He looked at Lisa with a hard look she had never seen from her boyfriend before. "Lisa, tell me you couldn't give me the money we were going to buy a car with. Tell me that." "Yeah, I don't have any other money." Lisa shrugged nonchalantly. "Yes, you got that right. I gave that money." David, with a sidelong glance. With a cruel look unfamiliar to Lisa, he took a step in her direction. "You couldn't do that. Are you stupid? We were going to buy a car with that money, and you gave it to a woman who hates you for the treatment of a boy who was a total stranger to you. That's a lot of money. What about our dream? What about the car, Lisa?" It was the first time the guy had spoken to her so cruelly, and his gaze made Lisa feel uncomfortable. The joyful mood with which she had entered the house instantly vanished. Everything was going so well. Molly couldn't understand it at first, either. When Lisa called her in the middle of the night and asked for the address where she was at the moment. When Lisa arrived and laid out the money in front of Molly, pulled over a simple rubber band. Molly stared at her, just as dumbfounded, and just as her future husband had been a few seconds before. "What is this? Where did this money come from?" The woman's eyes widened. Lisa explained Molly didn't believe it and couldn't believe it. Then she threw herself on the girl's neck and cried, "Lisa, you are so sorry for everything. I've caused you so much worry, and you. But is it enough? Sobs too?" Lisa from involuntarily crying them. "You told me yourself that that boy is my brother, and I know Mom wouldn't mind. I feel so bad for your mom. I realize that now. I'll be grateful to the end of my life. Now I have a real chance to save my boy. Tonight I got a call from a charity organization saying they've raised some money. And now with my money, the trip can be a reality." Molly, still hugging Lisa, pulled away and looked into her eyes. "Lisa, come to Germany with me. I beg you. I'm alone, all alone. I'm so scared, I have no one. And you're my closest, dearest person in the world. Let's go. I'm begging you." Lisa agreed without hesitation. She wanted to be close to her brother at this difficult time in her life. Then they sat with Molly until morning, discussing the upcoming trip, choosing a name for the boy. Lisa suggested naming him after her grandfather, George, and Molly nodded in agreement. Yes, let him be named after a good man. Your grandfather was a good man. I like the name. Now my son is not just a nameless boy in the Kevin Nikes you, and he's waiting there for you and me. And so after a night like that, Lisa came home in high spirits. And then, finally realizing what his girlfriend had done, he started screaming his head off. Stupid. You're going to Molly right now, and you're going to take our money from her. Tell me you changed your mind. What do you mean, you don't want to? Then I will. I'll go to her right now. Give me the address right now. You're not going anywhere either, Lisa said firmly. It's my decision. I'm not changing it. And cars are just hardware, and they're not worth a human life, a child's life. We'll earn it ourselves later. When David kept yelling how much you and I have to save up for it with our salaries. And here we had the money we needed. We had it in our hands. I've been dreaming of this car. I've already picked it out. That's right, you did. I never dreamed of it. And after all, I didn't give you an answer. I didn't promise. I just said I'd think about it. Take Molly's money, you idiot. David stabbed her in a nasty falsetto. Take it before it's too late. The girl looked at her fiancé as if seeing him for the first time. She didn't know David like this, and she hadn't imagined he could be. And the guy finally went into a frenzy. He came close to Lisa and slapped her hard. He didn't calm down, he shoved her. Take the money. He kept going on and on, like a madman. The girl was afraid of the violence she had never experienced in her life, no matter how much of a bastard her father was. He'd never laid a hand on her, not her or her mom. The girl sprinted to the hallway and then quickly sprinted outside. She ran from the house, holding her hand to her burned cheeks. After walking a couple blocks, the girl pulled out her phone, calling David. I hope you went to pick up the money, was the first thing he said. Forget about that money and forget about me too. I'm going to the police right now and file a battery report on you. What beating? I only slapped you to bring you to your senses. By the time you get to the police, you won't have a rat on your cheek. I had a little bit of a temper. Yeah, I agree. But you have to understand me too. You did something so stupid. It's not too late to take it all back. Think about it. I have nothing to think about. I don't want to see you again, even if I have to, but not for long. And I don't want to work with you. You're going to go and write your own letter of resignation today. You know how I am with everyone at the courthouse. And they don't like you there. So either you quit on your own or they'll kick you out. Lisa hung up. David didn't show up for work that day. He sat at the girl's house and waited for her to return. He hoped she would move away. I mean, she's kind. But Lisa didn't come home alone. She walked in with a couple of her institute male friends. The girl did not want to be alone with David for a second longer. Lisa's friends made Bath pack his things and forced him out of the house. And soon Molly was admiringly looking at the lobby of the German clinic. Lisa, look at the level of all the equipment here. How Kevin will be saved. Yes, of course, they will, smiled at the young interpreter, who led them around the clinic. We have the best of doctors. Now I will introduce you to the doctor who will operate on your boy. Come on, he is already waiting for us. And the interpreter led the girls to the right room. There was a young doctor waiting for them in a snow-white robe on which there was not a single crease. He was very good-looking and looked more like a movie actor playing a doctor than a real Dr. Molly. Thinking that around, except for the interpreter, no one understands them anyway. She said the first thing that came into her head. Something very young. We need a more experienced doctor. The doctor flashed a charming snow-white smile that made Lisa's heart flutter and said in pure Russian, "Don't worry. I have enough experience, and it is not the first time I will perform such an operation." "Oh, do you speak Russian?" Molly was embarrassed. "Forgive me, I did not think." Molly was silent. I was completely confused and didn't know what to say next. Lisa tried to save the situation. "You speak Russian so beautifully with no accent at all." Of course, the doctor smiled again. "I'm an American myself. 5 years ago, I worked in New York, and then I was invited to Germany. I was assigned to this clinic to do your boy's surgery after learning that you are my compatriots. It will be easier for us to communicate. Once again, I ask you not to worry. I have experience. My name is Nick. Now, let's discuss our next steps. We can't delay the operation. Today, our little patient will rest from the road. He will take all the necessary tests, and the operation will be scheduled for tomorrow morning." From the young Dr. Molly and Lisa came out encouraged at the long conversation. Nick seemed serious. He's the doctor's confidence builder. He must really be very good at what he does. After all, he was lured to work here for a reason. I don't think they'd lure ordinary doctors from Russia to a clinic like this. Did you see the way he looked at you when he asked what you were doing with the baby? He couldn't take his eyes off you. He obviously liked you. Molly did. Don't make it up. Lisa, who actually sensed Nick's interest in her own. I'm not making anything up. I'm telling it like it is. He finally stopped calling you. I don't know, I blacklisted him. Lisa frowned at the mention of her fiance's ex. Breaking up with him had been hard on the girl. Hard in terms of the fact that he had followed her all the way to Germany. Under the pressure of Lisa, David left work, but every evening came to her home. The guy repented, apologized, said he loved her. He looked as good-natured as ever. At the beginning of their acquaintance, but now Lisa knew his true face, saw it when he called her names and hit her. But that's it. I don't think about him anymore. Slowed down Lisa Molly, seeing the change in her face. Let's talk about the upcoming surgery and Nick. I want so much to believe that everything will go well. It will, Lisa said confidently. Molly was walking down the street, holding another Kevin by the handle. The boy was eager to slip away from his mother and experience the depth of the puddles. With his shiny new boots. Kevin, but don't be silly. Don't jump in the puddles. Look, you're already wet. But the boy did not obey and kept pulling his mother by the hand in the direction of such attractive boxes. The boy was very active, and the only reminders of the former diagnosis were hospital discharges kept in the house. In this very house, Molly herself now lived with her son. Now they were returning there after a walk. As they entered the house, Molly sighed heavily as she looked at the mess made by the toddler. Now, Kevin, I'll feed you quickly, and you'll play quietly in your room. The woman said, We have to clean and tidy up the place. Aunt Lisa is coming from Germany soon. She's already here. A cheerful voice came from the front door. Molly turned around and saw Lisa and Nikita coming in through the locked door. Lisa, how could it be? The woman splashed her hands. You were only promised a couple days later. Yes, we arrived early. Aren't you glad? Yes, Radha, I'm very happy. I just haven't had time to move in yet. Kevin, he's like a hurricane. You don't have to check anything. Everything's great here. Besides, we may have to sell the house. Liz, you sure you haven't changed your mind about moving in with your new man? What new man? We've been dating for 6 months. He's been talking me into it for a long time. He's so responsible, reliable. The exact opposite of your father, Lisa. I'll introduce you. Of course you will, Lisa chuckled. How's your father? Haven't you heard from him in a while? How could I not? He shows up from time to time. Now, when he realized that the child doesn't need any more treatment and he has a healthy and cheerful son, and especially when Andrew found out we were living in this house, I could barely keep him away. I never stepped on the same rake again. After me, Andrew went through 2 women and couldn't get along with anyone. And mind you, both of these women kicked him out themselves. I guess being shrewd and changing your mom's mind, they figured it out right away. Well, why are we all standing at the door? Come on in, I'll feed you. Where's your luggage? While Molly was setting the table, Lisa went into the nursery. She came into the kitchen with Kevin in her arms. Why are you pushing him? Molly smiled. He's already a big boy and he's a scarlet one. You are not heavy. Lisa laughed. He's like the nicest burden in the world. Really, Kevin, I miss him so much. Do you ever get out to see us? That's when Nick came over to Lisa and took the baby out of her arms. I miss my favorite patient too. Kevin, hug your uncle. He's your savior. He did your surgery, Molly said to the baby, who didn't understand such words. Nick smiled and played with Kevin, and Molly admired him. Wow, how lucky Lisa was to meet someone like him. That's what fate means, to go to a foreign country, and that's where you meet your soulmate. The spark between the young Dr. Nick and Lisa was immediate. Even Molly noticed it at their first meeting. And how did it all come together so quickly? The young people knew they didn't have much time. Lisa had to leave soon, but it was immediately clear that they were close in spirit and understood each other half-heartedly. When Lisa had her baby brother's surgery and returned to the USA, Nick came with her, unable to bear the separation. And so strong were the feelings between them that Lisa quit her job, left home, and went to Germany with him. Now the girl was getting a second higher education, this time in medicine. She realized that her vocation is also to help people, as her husband helps. They became husband and wife with Nikita a year ago. Molly could not go to their wedding. Finances didn't allow it. But Kevin was growing up and had already started going to kindergarten, so the time is not far off when Molly will be able to go to work. Besides, she has met a man who is not rich, older than herself, but reliable. So life is getting better. It's getting better for all of us. Molly thought out loud. Oh, you don't say. Lisa exclaimed. You know, Molly, I'm already working at Nick Help, just at the front desk, but I'm learning and gaining experience. You should know how much I love medicine. Someday I'll be able to treat people, relieve their suffering. I don't doubt that at all, Molly smiled. You know, I curse myself for getting involved with Andrew, but I met you. You've made Kevin and I a better family, and you've changed me for the better. And I wasn't like that before. I guess I was more like your father. I've often wondered if I'd been in your shoes back then. Well, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have given you the money. All right, that's enough, girls. Nick said sternly. There's nothing to remember about bad things. Let's better think about what plans we have for this visit. Lisa, it's probably time to do something about the house, said Molly. Have you changed your mind about selling it? I have, and I've changed my mind. I've just been wandering through the rooms. It's all so familiar. I feel like I'm going to hear my mom's voice, but on the other hand, I can't leave the house empty. Maybe Nick suggested the tenants. You and I have time. Let's summarize the family positive people. They'll keep an eye on the house and Molly will visit here occasionally. Yes, that's what we'll do, nodded Lisa, looking around the home lovingly.